My name is Antonia David, and I am Legal Director with InterJust. I think we like to think of that civil society being a bridge or a link to prosecutors, to investigators, to law enforcement, whoever might actually be investigating or prosecuting sort of international crimes, war crimes, crimes against humanity. And so in that bridge, there's a lot of different contributions that can be made. It can be anything from connecting authorities to survivors and families of these victims, because local organizations are often the first line that's in touch with survivors, that they understand the context, the language, the culture, they have the trust of the community. So providing that link directly to the people who are most affected. It can be organizations that can provide a cultural or a thematic expertise to authorities, to prosecutors, law enforcement that might not know the specifics about the context and the conflict. So they can provide this sort of thematic expertise, legal expertise, and then additionally bringing in other expertise to help the investigation. Organizations that help with sort of open source online digital investigations that really professionalize and specialize in these skills, which might not be something that law enforcement has any experience with, or a lot of experience with, or time to be able to do. So it's really sort of thinking about civil society as a whole, which we like to do very sort of comprehensively, and then seeing what specifically authorities might need and how we can form that link. And ourselves, we consider ourselves sort of the legal piece, understanding what it takes to do a universal jurisdiction type case, what it means to build these cases where you're looking at context, where you're looking at survivors, representing survivors, the violations that specifically happen to them, and then the perpetrators. Who are the potential perpetrators for these crimes? And what does it take to build that case? And which actors do we need as part of it? For strategic litigation, it can be anything from accountability specifically for survivors of international crimes against specific perpetrators to the sort of public opinion advocacy route. And when we use the term strategic litigation, we're referring to all of that combined. And whether we pursue one or the other or both or, a third way and a fourth way really depends on what the purpose of the case is. And so this is where we, as part of taking on a case, decide what is the ultimate goal? Is it accountability? What do the survivors and families in our cases want? Do they want specific accountability? Do they want justice? Do they want the ability to have their case heard, their story heard in front of an impartial forum? Is it more of changing the perspective or the narrative around a specific conflict? Is there more of this advocacy, media, communication, public communications component? So is it about changing the narrative, and therefore the case is more around collecting enough information to be able to make this case? The universal jurisdiction cases we have filed so far are not primarily for advocacy. They're for legal accountability, but they include this essential advocacy component to it. From our experience, it's really just about building a relationship of trust. There's no magic formula, there's no magic presentation we can come do to convince them that the work we do will help them or will likely help them. All we can do is explain to them what we do, how we work, our methodology, our standards to collecting information and providing them with information to a criminal grade standard. And we can give them examples of how we've done it in other countries, have our partners there and sort of introduce them to the help we can provide. And then it becomes a relationship, whether they engage with that, whether they don't. is really part of the process. And sometimes we found it doesn't work. It doesn't immediately take off. And then it's more about the long game, the medium to long game of continuing to support prosecution or law enforcement authorities in other countries to show that this can be done, to make that effort, and then with the hope that we might be able to take that forward. But really, it's just about trust. It's a relationship of trust through working together. Within Europe, we have the Genocide Network, InterJust, Europol to an extent. We have these regional mechanisms emerging in Asia-Pacific region, in Africa, in Latin America, hopefully, where it really is prosecutors, law enforcement sharing the expertise. And I think that has been huge in contributing to sort of showing that these cases aren't complex, take 20 years, rocket science cases. They can be simple. They can proceed very easily, more similar to probably many things that law enforcement has already worked on around organized crime or transnational crime. So it's been really helpful to have these regionalized systems where law enforcement can show each other what is possible. And we have tried to plug into those along with other civil society organizations to show how civil society can help as part of this process, to pass along information, to develop, to strengthen these relationships. Common law jurisdictions, we've seen historically, have had a lot less international crimes investigations and prosecutions. And I think it's partly for this reason of evidentiary issues that we don't have in civil law jurisdictions. Civil law jurisdictions, most of the information can come in, most of the evidence can come in, and then it's up to the judge to decide how much weight to give it, how to attribute it to the different pieces of proving the crime and the context and the perpetration. What we have in common law jurisdiction is a much higher threshold for evidence even coming in. And this is why we see less of those cases. But I think from our approach, it has been really working with communicating, building relationships, understanding where prosecution authorities are coming from and where their actual gaps are. I think there's this idea that because of this difficulty, it's hard, we shouldn't try, let's go to France or Germany, all these jurisdictions that have heard these cases before where it might be easier. But we're really engaged in trying to work with common law systems to understand, okay, what exactly would you need to prove this contextual element or to prove this piece? And then within that, creatively trying to figure out how we can help possibly supply some of that information. So whether that means bringing in certain experts to corroborate information or the classic bringing in the authors of the report or just understanding what they actually would need in a concrete example, practical examples, instead of letting sort of the big scary common law jurisdiction evidentiary standards are difficult be sort of the limiting factor. I think creativity is the core of the work we do on international crimes, period. They're difficult crimes to prove when compared with others. They often involve a lot of moving parts, different people, pieces of evidence, information located in different countries, some of them hard to reach or impossible to reach. So there's already inherently creativity at the core of what needs to happen. And so for us, I think it's just been pushing that creativity a bit further. A lot of the work we do is across sort of different expertise that might have traditionally not been a part of official legal processes. It's pulling in multidisciplinary approaches. It's working with more data-driven information where it's all of this is where it's relevant, where it's possible, but being more creative about how to collect information to prove crimes, to prove perpetration, to prove linkage information, so that we're not sort of relying on the same standards that we need to check, but that we consider sort of all the other new sources of information that might be available to help prove these elements.